Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement. Your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Aaron Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services, and I'm joined this week and every single week by my dad, Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
45-year veteran.
45-plus year veteran.
You're going to age me already. Thank you.
Almost a half a century.
And my husband, Rob Marcum, who's also who is our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. You got him so good, you got me.
My soon-to-be ex-son-in-law.
You don't get to make that choice. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan with several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want to do in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, there are many ways that you can keep in contact with us throughout the week, aside from our show every Saturday morning. I can log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on the upper right-hand corner, the Contact Us button. You can request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. The lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and we do keep the last year's worth archived on the website, but we send a new newsletter out every single month, and as we're in the second week already, oh my gosh, of October. Rob, tell us what is in our November newsletter.
In the November 2024 newsletter, we have some great articles. The first one being employment stays strong despite high rates. You know, when the Fed Reserve raises interest rates, the unemployment rate usually rises as well. Remarkably, the unemployment rate has stayed under 4% during and after the 27 months of the Fed's rate increases that began in 2022. Now that the Fed has begun to lower rates, that should bode well for keeping the employment rate strong. And there's a great little infographic there that you can see the rate increases matched up against the unemployment rate. And our next article, year-end tax tips. You know, we're quickly approaching the end of the year, as crazy as that may seem. And this article lays out some tax tips to keep in mind as we close out 2024. Chief among them, accelerating deductions by saving more for retirement. If you are on the right side of 50, now is the time to maybe consider some of those catch-up contributions that you're eligible to make. If you haven't maxed out your contributions to your retirement accounts, now is a good time to think about maybe accelerating those into the end of the year. And for you youngsters that are on the right side of 73, remember that your required minimum distribution has to be out of your IRA account by the 31st of December. And our next article, do you have enough life insurance? This is a great article that walks you through some very basic questions you should ask when deciding how much life insurance is appropriate and how to determine that amount. And they give a bunch of examples. I've highlighted a couple. The income rule, which basically it roughly states that the insurance need is roughly 6 to 8 times your gross salary. So, for example, if you made $60,000 a year, you would need between $350,000 and $500,000 in life insurance. And then you have a family needs approach where you map out your needs by immediate needs, funeral expenses, and other immediate costs that will happen upon your demise. Your ongoing needs usually revolves around maintaining a lifestyle or matching the life insurance with a debt obligation.
Like a mortgage.
Yes, or even a future obligation like maybe a child's college education. And then we have special needs funding, which I put in there because a lot of families have a relative that is in a special needs situation, and life insurance could be appropriate for creating the capital needed for their care after you're gone. So I thought that was important to add. And our last article.
A great article.
8 ideas for smarter holiday shopping. Again,
think of Dad first.
You cut right in. You just snaked me for a joke.
Well, keeping with the theme that we're closing out the year very, very quickly, this article lays out 8 great ways to be a smarter shopper this holiday season. And, chief among them is you want to be shopping early. You don't want to be fighting the crowds. And also, the items that you're looking for are more likely to be in stock and readily available if you hit the stores early. Another one I found interesting was you might want to consider using one card for all your Christmas transactions, which serves a couple of purposes. Number one, when you log into that account online, you can quickly see where you are vis-a-vis your holiday spending, so you don't get out too far in front of your skis. You don't get that statement in the middle of January, and it's like, oh my God, I spent way too much. Another a great byproduct of using one card for all your purchases is you can quickly see that all the purchases are legitimate and as they should be, because the holiday shopping spree season does bring out its fair share of scammers and unscrupulous merchants. So having all your purchases on one card that you can quickly refer to make sure you're spending what you feel is appropriate and that all the charges there are legitimate, it just seems like a no-brainer to me. And that is your November 2024 newsletter.
I also see on here, make a list. Dad, make a list.
You're right. I really did enjoy this article because I was thinking that even though the title was abbreviated slightly.
What is the title abbreviated slightly from? 8 ideas for smarter holiday shopping for Dad.
You're so bright, that's why I called you daughter, okay?
I'm just still smarting over I had a whole joke prepared and you just jumped right in and got me before I could make it.
There you go.
You can wait till next week. There's 2 more weeks.
Beautiful.
There's 2 more Saturdays in November. Yeah. I have time.
Again, we call it the Coach's Corner. Easy to access. Go to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that floating icon. It's on every page. And sign up. We'd love to send it to you every week. And as you know,
every month. Rob can't write them every week. That would be a lot of work.
Come on. He's a talented guy.
He is.
It feels like every time we're we're in the second week of the newsletter. It's like, I just put this together. Wait a minute. How could that be?
It's time to get back to it.
Right. It'd literally be time to construct another one in like another 10 days.
Right.
Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line. And, of course, if you do have some shopping ideas for Aaron for her dad, we're very open and welcome for this as well. So give us a call. Again, we'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts, I think it would be appropriate to review that this week was one of the best weeks that we've had in the stock market.
I was thinking that, and all the times we had those questions from
what was going to happen? What was going to happen?
Should I move to cash? Should I be in an all-cash position, 6 months out, 3 months out? I think this is a great illustrator in why you don't want to trade your retirement accounts or any account, really, based on the news cycle.
Well, I think we had 2 things that happened at the same time.
It's like a 1-2 punch this week.
Exactly. Number one is we elected the 47th president.
So we have an outcome which gives us certainty over the next 4 years.
I certainly feel better knowing that
there's
the
an
silly
outcome.
Season is over. We have a new administration. Secondarily, what happened was we had the Fed, as Rob said earlier, they reduced interest rates.
Another 25 basis points.
Which is good news, not good news.
Well, it's not good
because the Fed
news
lowers interest rates because they believe that the markets or the employment markets
are seeing some weakness potentially.
Exactly, and we've seen that, et cetera. So trying to avert a recession, which is fine. The good news is that we know we're going to have a new administration, which is great. And we think that uplifting feeling.
Well, just the certainty
Right.
of knowing what is going to happen the next 4 years is going to provide probably some additional stability to the market, but one day of exuberance doesn't make a new trend.
I think the decisive nature of what happened this week provides real clarity, and
we don't have to wait for more vote counting. There's won't be any legal battles, which is very good for not all of our psyches as U.S. citizens, but also for the markets as well, because Tuesday ended on Wednesday morning, and now we get to move forward.
Well, and again, I was going to say one of the questions that I have been receiving during coaching sessions, and certainly I'd love the two of you to also chime in on these, is that what will happen from here? What will the next administration do? Should I change? Should I be making portfolio changes based upon the new administration? So I have just a couple of observations. Over the last several years, there have been many folks that have talked about what happens when the Trump tax cuts sunset. Well, there's probably a high probability is that they're not going to sunset. They may be tweaked, but what will happen is that we're not going to see taxes rising. So my personal philosophy is we never try to plan for tax raises in the future because the future is always uncertain, and certainly this was one thing that showed that. The second thing is we do have an administration which has told us that they're focused on growing the economy, and that's a good thing. So being invested, staying invested makes sense.
I would also just add to that, even with some definite positive sentiment in the market, I don't think that is a license necessarily to take on unnecessary risk. We've already been in almost a 24-month bull market with some really nice gains, and I think it's still the opportunity to, like we talk about, staying the course, because it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market, and that's true for up cycles as well as when we experience down cycles.
Generally speaking, I think the tax climate and the regulatory environment going forward is certainly going to be more favorable towards business, and that should have a downstream effect on the markets. And
this is another time that we want to separate the market from either personal opinions or also even individual impacts on the economy, because the market's going to have a very different take on less regulation, easier regulatory environment, as you said, Rob, versus either how we feel about it or even what it looks like on Main Street versus Wall Street.
Yeah, and just to put a little exclamation point here into what you had been saying earlier, being invested. We're coming up to the end of the year, and as most of you should be considering doing, as we automatically do with all of our clients, we're going to be rebalancing those portfolios. We've had a run up. We've seen profits. We'll be taking some of those profits, which makes sense. And then at the same time, getting reinvested back to our risk tolerance so that we're ready for the future.
Right.
And certainly rebalancing is something very much to consider to the end of the year. Rebalancing isn't running away. It's just rebalancing risk in your portfolio. So good thing to do. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from text line, and 5% up this week. Woo! I love that.
Cannot complain.
Absolutely. And hopefully you participated in some of that gains for this week, which is great. I do want to go back while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts. I want to go back to our newsletter. One of our important articles this month was, do you have enough life insurance? Well, let's not talk about the measuring the need for life insurance, but with many of our clients, the question is, what do I do with these contracts? So as an example, during a coaching session that I had this week with Joe and Terry, they asked my opinion on how to handle a 20-year level term life insurance policy that they had. And kind of let's go through, if we can, some of the facts behind this, and you'll get a feeling for where we were going with this.
And Joe had purchased a $200,000 level premium term policy to cover an existing mortgage at his age 53. At that time, he was issued a non-smoker preferred risk, which is the best rate that one can have. The policy is now 15 years old with 5 years remaining at that level premium.
And the current premium is running about $636 a year, which is inexpensive. But in the 21st policy year, which is when his contract will renew basically in 5 years, the premium increases from $636 to $19,748.
I think this is an important thing to just mention about term life insurance policies, because many people don't know, which is that when you buy a term life policy, for whatever the stated term is, in Joe's case, we're talking about a 20-year level term, that means the premium stays level for 20 years. You don't lose the coverage after the 20th year. The premium just does something that most people absolutely do not like. So you still have the coverage, but what we're talking about is when's the opportune time to maybe make some changes to that premium.
And because we know when those contracts renew, what happens, they go to what we call an annual renewable term. So it's like a one-year term policy that just keeps going up each year.
And so in that first year, the 21st year, it's going to be $19,750.
Right.
Got you.
Something they obviously wanted to avoid.
This policy offers a conversion feature prior to the 20th policy year. So that's something that certainly we want to take a look at.
And it's important to take a look at your term life policy contracts. They all state when your conversion privilege is available to you. Some companies and some policies have varying guidelines, meaning it's optimal that you convert at certain points in the life of the contract. So you just want to be clear after you've purchased the term contract, what are your options as you approach the end of the term?
Yes, and so General, let's talk about some of the things that you would be want to considering in making this decision. Number one is how much of a death benefit do you want to continue onto your death? They currently have a $200,000 contract, but do they really need that much? Do they want that much?
Well, the reason they originally purchased it was to cover a mortgage.
Right.
Do they still have that mortgage? It's obvious. It most likely isn't at the same level unless maybe they've refinanced or something along those lines.
Well, the other thing is that, as we'd like to think, needs change. You know, these folks are clients of ours. They're retirees at this point because they're in their 60s. They've developed nice size retirement accounts. We know that they're going to eventually pass those on to children or grandchildren. There'll be income taxes due for them when they begin to withdraw money from those. Do they want to create money to pay those taxes? Do they want to create inheritances for children, grandchildren? Do they need, how much capital do they really need if in this particular case, if Joe predeceases Terry, does she need additional capital to continue the lifestyle that she has today?
It's really an ongoing question we have with many of our clients is, how do we repurpose, the old insurance contracts that you had that you bought for a specific reason? Can we repurpose it for something else that needs to be attended to?
And it's always important when we are designing game plans that not only are we designing a game plan for when both spouses are alive, but when one passes away, because we know that at minimum, the surviving spouse is going to lose some income, be it Social Security only, or that could include pension income as well. So this is an opportunity for us to create an income replacement potentially for a surviving spouse. But I thought it might be important I'm sure everyone that is listening that has a term life policy is asking, mechanically, what do we do? So I've got a term life policy. It's coming to the end of the term, just like Joe and Terry. What's the process for keeping it?
Right. And the real other question is, do we wait until the end of the guarantee period with the low premiums at $636 before that conversion expires?
Right. So what do we do? When do we do it? How does it work?
Exactly. So those are important decisions. And then also, what contracts are available through the insurer to go to some type of a more permanent contract, whether it be a permanent whole life, universal life, or is there even other term insurance options available? Generally, after the age of 70, you can't purchase a new term policy. Insurance companies just don't offer that.
Another question asked is there a minimum size that you need to convert of the 20,000 of their limits? So that would be
200,000. Do they have a minimum?
Exactly. Is it you have a $200,000 policy at minimum you have to convert $40,000? Are there any limitations on the policy in that regard?
Well, in general, I think maybe let's try to answer a few of these questions. Which is, first of all, when you are doing a conversion, what that means is you're taking your term policy, which has a term on it, 20, 30, whatever year that you selected when you originally had the contract, and converting that into something that we would consider permanent, which means will last as long as you do or as long as you're paying your premiums.
Yes, and we're paying a higher level premium so that as you age, rates don't increase. That's why you would go to some type of a permanent contract. The size is obviously important. The other question is,
when do we do this?
Right, when do we do it? Generally, we'll try to, if we can, wait as long as we can to do it, assuming the conversion age is optimized at that point, because if we do that...
You're going to be paying more.
Right, every year that you wait.
So, right, and so I think it's important, like we want to strike the balance, which is one, the conversion privilege is important to consider when you have a term policy because you do not have to go through medical underwriting again in order to convert what you have.
Right, and you're converting it at the risk level that you had at the time of issue, which in this case was non-smoker preferred, and there's nothing better.
So you don't have to go through medical underwriting again. You're going to receive the same rate class that you received 20 plus years ago when you purchased the policy. But there is a balance to strike because you want to keep the term premium as long as you can, because we know that by the nature of the contract, you're going to be paying more for the permanent policy. So either waiting until the end of the term or waiting until your policy's optimal date, which should be revealed to you either through an illustration if you're working with an agent that sold you the policy, or it'll be spelled out directly in the policy for you that says the last 5 years of this contract are the optimal times in which to consider a conversion.
Mechanically, we want to make sure we do this the right way, and we stretch out the premium as the level premium as long as we can while also preserving the right to convert.
Exactly, because you want to keep all your options open.
Yes, and then obviously once you've come through some of those decisions, then it's a question of, well, what's the source of funds that we're going to be using to pay these premiums? For some of our clients, we found that those required minimum distributions that they're required to take, they're not using them, maybe they're not consuming them for income purposes. That might be a source of income. It's possible that they could have interest on non-retirement assets, dividends, etc. We could skim some money to do it that way. Again, our job is to find the premium, and then the question then becomes, because we're designing a contract for a face amount that they want at a premium that we know is going to be there, how long do you want to pay that premium? Do you want to pay it until your death? Do you want to pay it for a 10-year period, a 15-year period? In this particular client's case, they kind of like the idea that if we were going to convert now, what would happen is that we pay for 12 years. That would take him to age 80. And then at age 80, I'm done. So, again, this does become truly, if you're using a universal life policy, a computer problem. Let's feed in the variables, which is how old am I, what's the face amount, how many years do I want to pay, and what that will then do is the computer will spit back, this is the premium you have to pay.
So if our listeners have a term policy and they're considering this conversion, would you also consider shopping elsewhere to compare? So my question essentially is the conversion always the best solution, or could there possibly be the opportunity to move on from the contract entirely?
There's no question about it. One situation could be, let's assume that at the time of issue somebody was a smoker. And now they're a non-smoker.
You don't want that rating
right,
class
that
anymore.
rating is not going to work for you.
That would be huge. I mean, that would be a big difference.
So in that particular case, do you through underwriting again, or do they do it so they would make you go through underwriting again in order to get a new rate class? And in this case, it would be for your benefit versus potentially detriment. But you don't know when you go through underwriting.
Absolutely. And also, there are occasions where companies do have, and we've seen this from carriers, where they'll have a we'll buy that old policy, where they'll permit us to convert contracts.
Okay.
On a guaranteed basis. So being a smart shopper makes sense, and your agent who you're working with is somebody that will do that if they're still around. Because a lot of times what happens is that life insurance agent may have moved on to another career. They may not have become financial planners.
They may have retired.
Right. They could be retired like many of our clients, accountants, attorneys, physicians. Over time, they retire. It's the same, something similar.
Well, we know that this is a very important asset. Anyone's estate planning, and certainly is one that needs proper consideration. So,
absolutely.
This was once, and what we'll do is, I think in a month or so, we'll do an update on this. Talk about what were the decisions that were made, what we decided to do, and more importantly, let's decide to take our first break of the hour.
Let's do it.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. It's 9:35 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We have some more Straight Talk on Retirement. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. A little quiet this morning. It's okay. Wake up.
It's a little gloomy.
314-931-5877 or 84126 from text line.
People are anticipating. Holidays are coming. I saw Worldwide Technology has the wreath up on the building, so that means holiday times are here.
Well, honey, all I can tell you is it's nice to be looking younger and thinner, a little better looking. Markets are going up. Whoop.
Right.
Love that. Love to see the clients make. I mean, what can you say? Love when the clients' accounts go up. Life is good. So let's talk a little bit about, while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts again this morning. I know that you and Rob had a visit with some rock stars this week.
We did.
Folks that might have hoped that they were going to
visit.
Everybody that walks through the door are rock stars.
That's right.
So with that in mind, we'll talk a little bit about John. John is 64 years old, and he is the regional sales manager for a plastics manufacturing firm. His wife, Susan, is also 64 and is a decorator. They live in Chesterfield. They have accumulated a combined $2.7 million in taxable retirement assets, an additional $120,000 in Roth IRA assets, and $180,000 in savings. They have no mortgage payment.
That's incredible. Those are great savers.
Prolific.
Well, it's great, and we do have many folks that are like this. You know, what they've done is they've been good savers. They've dealt with eliminating their debt, and
But only being a good saver is not enough to qualify as a rock star.
Not necessarily, and we're going to talk about how these folks may or may not qualify as rock stars. But we know that not having mortgage payments is definitely one of those key prescriptions to becoming a rock star.
That's right, and as always, when we sat down with John and Susan, we wanted to find out how much they were spending every month, because that's really where the jumping off point for our retirement game planning begins.
Everything begins with what you're spending.
That's right. So they let us know they're spending about $10,000 a month.
And we know we have to scale that up for taxes, and that brings us to $12,000.
Right, about $12,400, because we're going to increase it by 20% for taxes.
Right.
We know that John and Susan's Social Security benefits are going to total about $4,900 when we turn them on. So John's about $3,000, and Susan is about $1,900 a month.
That's going to leave them with a net deficit of $7,500 per month. We know we have to scale that up over the full year, which leaves us with an annual deficit $90,000.
So how much capital do they need, or as I like to call milk money, using a 4% withdrawal rate, prudent,
right, so
to generate $90,000 per year?
they're going to need about $2.25 million, and we use that 4% rate of withdrawal because we want to have our clients live off the interest and the earnings of their capital, and we found through not only research but historical data that if we can keep to about a 4% rate of withdrawal over a long period of time, that gives us the best chance to maintain and prudently grow assets.
And we know that at this particular analysis, they were not going to turn on those faucets until 2027.
So they still have a few more years to work.
That's right. And so
because that's going to make John 66. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So actually 67. So between now and 67, those 3 years, how much additional capital will they require as we're funding for their full income benefit because they won't have any income inflows?
Well, $12,000 times 12 months times 3 years. That brings us to a total of $432,000.
And therefore, adding that to the milk money of 2.25, we know that the total capital necessary is $2.68 million.
And they have just that.
Well, they have about 2.9.
Just that in their retirement accounts, excuse me.
Exactly. So, woohoo, the rock stars.
And I think this is important because we just mentioned we want to stay within that about 4% rate of withdrawal. Clearly, we're going to have a bit of time between when John and Susan retire and when their Social Security benefits begin, where there'll be a bit of what we would call a drawdown because they're going to pull more than that 4%. But we know that once all the faucets are on and using what I would say is a relatively conservative approach, assuming no growth in the assets, not only in the overall assets, but in the assets we've set aside for those 3 years when they won't be seeing any Social Security income, that they will still have enough to make that work over the long term.
So what happens if they decide, and it wouldn't be unusual, they say, well, if we're not going to go back to work, we're not going to have to worry about that Social Security take back. What if we decide to elect our Social Security benefits today? Would it make more sense to do that or to wait? What would be the effect in that case?
Well, we'd still have to fund to that $12,000 goal, but the Social Security number would come down slightly. It would be $2,700 for John and $1,500 for Susan, so that would leave them with $4,700. So the net deficit per month would go up. It would be $7,800, and the annual deficit would go from $90,000 to $93,600.
So the capital they would then need, instead of $2.25 million, now it goes to $2.35 million, which is fine because they're still rock stars. So in either case,
I think that this is a great example because so many people approach retirement, come in to visit with us, probably visit with other people with the mindset that they need to wait as long as humanly possible to take their Social Security benefit to maximize that. And I think this is a great illustration of how the math truly works. And it's going to give John and Susan some additional options. And and it's nice to know that they have every day from the day that they retire until 70 years old, or really in this scenario till 67, to make the decision to elect their Social Security benefit. It is nice to know that the math can work in either direction, meaning waiting till 67, which would be the most pressure on their assets, versus taking Social Security immediately, automatically alleviates some of the pressure from their assets, makes it consistent over a long period of time, avoids that initial drawdown that we were talking about. And I think it puts a little bit of a different perspective on things, because most people think about Social Security in terms of what they are going to get. How long do I have to wait to get a certain dollar amount? But what you leave out is how much am I giving up while I'm waiting to get what I was looking for? And those numbers can be relatively significant.
You know, what's cool is that there are obviously infinite number of variations here as well. We could be looking at, one could take Social Security and one say, I'm going to wait. One could say I'm taking, and the other one would say I'm waiting because maybe I'm going back to work and earning more than the Social Security take-back limit.
Or as Susan is a decorator, I know that's one of those jobs that doesn't necessarily end on a dime, so to speak. kind of like realtors, maybe high commission sales individuals. In a lot of cases we see as those people retire, they do so in stages. So pulling back, maybe only working with key clients, still bringing some income in. So the numbers could become, so the math could become very different, which is maybe John is taking Social Security, Susan's going to wait because she's still bringing in some income. Or maybe because Susan's bringing that income in, they both decide to wait. So there's a lot of choices.
Yeah. They certainly do have a lot of choices, and that's one of the beauties of being a rock star is there's no clearly defined path. Like you can take many paths to get to the same place. In their case, they could turn their Social Security benefits on immediately, or they could wait and still end up at that same place. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable with and, what you would prefer to do, not what you have to do.
Yeah.
Right. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
The other thing that I like about Social Security planning is this is one of those plans that can be changed relatively quickly, either based on comfort level or based on situational changes. So you can apply for your Social Security benefits up to 3 months in advance of receiving them. That's the earliest that you can apply. If today you decided, I'm retiring next month and I want my Social Security benefits to begin in December, you can apply for your Social Security benefit today. Your first check may not come in December, but if you say, I want that benefit to begin in December, most likely by January, you may have received two to represent that December payment as well. So this is a benefit that I consider flexible because it will give us the opportunity to make changes to an already defined game plan. So we've come up with the plan for John and Susan based on what we talked about during our initial meeting, but as things change, not only could be in the economy. Sometimes as we see the markets rise, people are more comfortable waiting to take their Social Security benefit, or the inverse could happen. We see a pullback in the market that may say, hey, I want to take some pressure off of these investments. Let's start that fixed income sooner than we had originally planned.
Or it could be a situation where, someone was planning on retiring, but, after 3 weeks of sitting home, they get the call and, their former employer is saying, hey, we'd like to have you back at double your salary with, half the work. So, which
true.
is a great situation to be in.
And I think we left out a nice chunk of conversation, which we usually touch on with Social Security. A lot of times it's income planning is making the decision to take our Social Security benefits, but there could be other situations where you've decided to take your Social Security benefit earlier because we're either working to pay down a debt. We talked about how John and Susan sounded like they were rock stars because they had no mortgage. Well, if they had a mortgage, maybe that might be a goal of ours to pay a debt down. So taking Social Security earlier to alleviate an expense might be an option, or because John and Susan happen to have a great after-tax savings built up, but we find that many people are following conventional wisdom, taking the tax deductions on the front end, putting as much into their retirement accounts as possible while they're working. So as they approach retirement, they might be what we're called cash poor because all of their assets are inside of taxable accounts, maybe creating some additional income to build up an after-tax savings would be another reason that Social Security might be elected sooner than you would have planned.
Very good. No question about that. And we just did receive a text. I plan to retire at the end of the year. Having said that, when should I call your office to arrange a free coaching session?
Well,
why wait?
Why wait? If you call today, you'll get the voicemail, but you'll hear Kelly, our office manager's voice, first thing Monday morning, either giving you a call, sending you an email to set up a day and time that will work for your schedule. The more advanced planning we have, the better. To make a comfortable transition for you into retirement.
Yeah, it's a little bit more fun. I mean, as an example, after we're done with our show today, I have a meeting with a client. They're planning.
Oh, that's an ironic thing. We too have a meeting.
We too have a meeting.
Right, and so this particular client of ours, he's 59 years old, so he's still a few years away from retirement. But we really have never sat down and run him through the numbers. So today we're going to gather up all his other numbers and really put him in a position where we're really going to test his thought process, hopefully give him some confirmation, but really begin to create that game plan, put the stones in place so that 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is down the road, he makes that decision to want to retire.
So this sounds
he'll be comfortably able to do that.
So this sounds like one of our more unique clients in that they joined us far prior to their goal of retirement, but obviously that's always in people's minds. So now we're going to step back.
Yeah, this was a referral from an existing client, to a friend who recently had left his employment.
Needed to do a rollover, maybe. Or
exactly,
something.
And we did a rollover a couple years ago. They've been pleased with how we've performed in terms of being their investment managers, and we had our review, and it was like, hey,
you're really getting closer, so let's
run the numbers. I mean, let's create this game plan for you, and obviously test it. And as we keep getting closer and closer, you understand where you're at. I mean, that's really it gives you some clarity.
I was going to say, also gives everyone the opportunity to set some goals. Meaning, you really get to see, maybe you're perfectly on track, but you just get to see where those goalposts are up ahead.
Building that runway or building that bridge, the longer time you have to do it, more stable it's going to be.
That's so true.
Exactly. And I think it's time that we take our second break of the hour.
Let's do it.
And when we get back, we'll be here for our last segment of this hour of State Truck and Retirement. We'll have hour number 2, which we know is always, we like to think of it as the Medicare Power Hour. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, we're back here at 953 on the Big 550. Straight Talk and Retirement, here to answer your questions and texts.
And we've got some.
931-5877 or 84126 from It's Heating Up. We love that text line.
And our first texter writes, what is your opinion of holding company stock in a retirement plan? I've heard I should be quote-unquote diversified. How much company stock is too much, or is this overthinking things?
That's a good question.
Very good question. Well, whatever company stock you're holding, I would tend to look at that as on two levels. Number one is that it's probably a sector fund. I think of it as a sector concentration.
Right.
And that would be something that you could rebalance your portfolio around. And number two, my experience has been that with most of our clients that work for companies that have stock plans, they're pretty good analysts when it comes to the stock.
Of their own company stock.
They've watched it for years going up and down, and they're making buy and sell decisions. And typically they're pretty good at that. So why not?
Well, here's a couple more questions, which is, some companies offer the ability to purchase company stock inside of retirement plans, so that's an easy place to balance and rebalance.
And sometimes at a discount, which is cool.
Which is very cool. Some companies offer stock purchase plans outside of retirement accounts. So would you still consider that a sector investment and you want to balance that with what's inside of your retirement account? Or would you look at that differently because you are usually buying that at a discount and getting the benefit of that lower basis?
No, I would certainly look at it as a sector investment.
So you'd still look at the whole portfolio together,
Absolutely.
Regardless of where you're able to purchase it?
Yeah, when you think about it, at least to me it makes sense. If I have money at different places, whether they're taxable or not taxable, it's all my money.
Right.
And if I'm really looking, and so one of the things that we try to do, I know on a daily basis, is synergize our clients' assets in their retirement accounts with those outside of them. Because the truth is, stuff that's in your retirement accounts, we can make changes in those without any income tax implications to you. So it becomes, in my mind, the great rebalancing tool.
If you have the opportunity to purchase stock outside of a retirement plan, would you decrease your retirement plan contributions to make those stock purchases, or would you only do that for excess savings potentially?
Well, I'm thinking that if I'm buying stock at a discount, then I would certainly try to take advantage of that. But first, I always want to maximize my pre-tax savings. Because those tax savings are going to be much more valuable than any discount you're going to get.
So regardless of what options you have available, the same principles apply. We want to have our emergency fund first, pre-tax savings, and then move on to potentially after-tax savings.
Exactly. Save first, then invest later.
And this is a really interesting text question. Our next texter writes, do you have an account maximum, and how comfortable are you working with high net worth retirees? Does the strategies you employ change depending on account size?
That's like a mega question.
Yeah, no, someone's really paying attention this morning.
Everyone's life is a different size.
Right.
What I would certainly say is we don't have an account maximum, and we also don't have an account minimum. We're more interested in working with folks that want to accept advice. What I would say, though, is that when you hit certain critical mass sizes in terms of an estate size, let's use an example, let's say $5 million. Options and opportunities for advanced planning become more necessary. And frankly, you can take advantage of tax-saving strategies that don't make a lot of sense, that may restrict capital a little bit more with lower amounts.
You also potentially have some additional. Everyone should be in a well-diversified portfolio that matches their risk tolerance. But as your wealth grows, you do sometimes have the opportunity to have additional diversification or asset classes added to your portfolio that you might not have at lower asset levels.
You know, those advanced estate planning options, I mean, I like to look at it as a way of putting your thumb on the scale for future generations. It's
right. It's insurance not only for yourself and your family, but it is creating an impact for your family down the line too.
Yeah. Again, what I love to say to clients is we're always open for money. Well, we're money managers. That's what we manage client assets. So size is not intimidating for us. Obviously, the more zeros, the more fun for us.
Certainly. Gives us more opportunities, bring in other professionals as well.
If it's needed. But again, I would say that when we get to, large numbers, the last example that we did with folks that were rock stars, what we really came down to was figuring out what's the milk money. When we know what capital they need, using a prudent-related withdrawal to make their life work in terms of the income needs, anyone that's a rock star really has these opportunities available to them.
And that's why asset size alone does not determine if you are a rock star.
Absolutely not.
Every life has a size. I love that principle, and we want to fund to that size and make sure that you're living the same life you were during your working career as your days in retirement.
It's so easy to do. If you'd like to arrange a coaching session, if you're within 5 years of retirement or ready to retire, you can do one of two ways. You can give our office a call, 314-863-0008. Again, 314-863-0008. Or go to our website, jblfinancial.com. But don't touch that dial. We've got hour number 2 coming after these minutes.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. As always, and especially during open enrollment.
Because you care. We talk Medicare.
That's right.
And it takes on a special importance given that we are smack dab in the middle of open enrollment where people are getting to put eyes on the new plans, maybe possibly make a shift.
Or just confirm that they feel like they're in the best place possible. Do we have a podcast?
We should.
That is a great question. So we do not have a separate podcast with separate content, but we do post our shows that have been approved by compliance on our website, jblfinancial.com. And you will also be able to find previous shows for the last 17 years that we've been on the air. We're going to have those all uploaded to some various places where you might stream podcasts. So be on the lookout.
Would be great to do a podcast completely apart and different from Medicare and financials where we talk about Bigfoot, missing people in the woods, and the nature of the simulation theory.
You just have a lot of confidence that people like your personality and not the content.
No, I think the subject matter would draw them in. Like, what? They're talking about this could be a simulation? I'll listen.
I think they have some late night hours at KTRS that are probably available for us for those UFO sightings and Bigfoot encounters.
Love to. But what's more important is what's on your mind.
That's exactly
That would be great.
Like I said, Medicare. We know you've been waiting the whole previous hour, the last 7 minutes to ask us your Medicare questions. So if you've had one queued up since last Saturday at 11 when we went off the air, send us a text, 84126 on the text line, or please give us a call, 314-931-5877. We don't have Frank in the house with us today. He's a little tired. He's been doing 6 to 7 meetings a day.
Yeah, he's been an absolute workhorse, and even with both of us trying
Medicare machine.
Right, and we've been trying to take things off his plate so he can get a little R&R and maybe just have a little bit of a lunch hour, but he has certainly been at it, and we are very appreciative of his efforts.
I love that. So if you are still in need of some review of your Medicare coverage for 2025, you could always send us an email. If you go to the website, jblfinancial.com, click on the Contact Us section, or if you send Rob or I an email, Aaron at jblfinancial.com or Robert at jblfinancial.com. We'll consult with Frank, the Medicare coach, on your Medicare needs for 2025, and we'll get back to you. You might hear from me. You might hear from Robert. You might hear from
all three of us.
That's
before
right.
It's over.
We're going to get it taken care of for you. But before we get into our topic of the day, we have our first caller on the line. Good morning, Mary.
Hi. Can you tell me, please, as a federal retiree, I've kept my health insurance through the federal government, and I would like to take Medicare supplemental insurance also, which I've done. But my concern is what I'm told by the federal government retiree people is that if I cancel my federal retiree insurance, I cannot restart that again. I cannot do that if I take a Medicare supplemental, only if I take Medicare Advantage plan. Are you familiar with the guidelines for federal retirees by any chance?
So unfortunately, the guidelines for federal retirees have actually changed really just recently in the past year. So there are different types of federal employees have different rules regarding their Medicare benefits. I have heard that if you do leave your Medicare, if your federal retiree benefits in certain situations you cannot get back in, I would say that it's important at this point to make a comparison between your federal employee benefits and what Medicare could offer you. I think by having the federal program plus a supplemental plan and Medicare, you may be over-insuring and maybe paying a little bit more than necessary. So I would take an
That's unquestionably true. Right, that's true. That's the situation I'm in, but I'm hesitant to let go of the federal retiree insurance in case I can't get it back. And yet the supplemental, I had to take it in order to be underwritten without a physical exam. So we're kind of locked in a jam.
It does put you in an interesting position. Here, what I would say is, and I have said this to numerous people, not just individuals that are utilizing the federal retiree system, but even for individuals that might have access to retiree plans through work that once they leave, they can't return to. If you have made the decision this year, next year, that the benefits you're being offered through Medicare and a supplement are superior to what the private federal what the federal plan is offering you, most likely the federal plan is never going to get better than it is today. So you're not going to lament having left. And I can also say that you have the unique position of jumping from federally backed benefits to other federally backed benefits. Medicare itself is a federal system. The supplemental plan that you have elected, although it's through a private insurer, it is still governed by the rules of Medicare, which is a federal program. Right. So you should have, so you've got maximum protection, I believe, depending upon whatever direction you go, you should see relative stability in your benefits. And I would even say that the Medicare benefits and supplemental benefits have been more stable in terms of expense to retirees than the federal retiree plan. Now, it's a great plan for pre-65 because it can really help you bridge to get to Medicare. But I do think in a lot of cases, we see many people leaving the federal retiree plan once they reach Medicare eligibility just because of those benefit comparisons.
Okay, because I know each individual situation varies naturally, yes. But the information that I've been given from a number of folks that I've spoken to and some things I've looked up is that the federal retiree system, the options are pretty good, and so
sure.
it's really kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I guess the part that really concerns me is I don't like being locked out of anything, and so you have to take the supplemental to be underwritten initially within your certain time frame.
Sure.
I don't like not being able to return to federal. So, okay, it looks like those things are accurate, right?
Yes. Thank you so much this morning for your call. And it looks like
we have another Mary on the phone. Good morning, Mary.
Hi. I'm calling about the Gold Advantage plan with the Eliquis. I'm looking at the book, and it says discounts paid by manufacturers under the manufacturer discount program do not count towards out-of-pocket cost. Now, another broker told me that Eliquis is going to be $150 per month if you go to a preferred drugstore, and you can only get 30-day supply. Is that correct?
So if that may be the case. I believe Eliquis with Aetna is a tier 3, which means it's about 25% of the retail cost.
Correct.
So about $150 does sound right, which means you are right up against that $2,000 cap for next year. So if you have any other prescriptions that you're filling above and beyond Eliquis, then even though your price may have gone up to purchase the Eliquis, your overall drug costs are going to be capped at $2,000 next year.
Okay. And can you also tell me now, I see they changed their name, and it says HMO-POS. What is that POS?
So HMO POS stands for Health Maintenance Organization Point of Service, and this really has no impact on how you utilize the plan. In the past, the HMO itself, if you remember prior to COVID, if you happen to have been on this plan for several years, you needed referrals to see your primary care doctor. Then during COVID, they said no more need for referrals. They are essentially letting CMS and Medicare know that they are not going back to a referral-based system, that they're going to maintain in-network only benefits, so you still have to stay inside of the Aetna network, but they are formalizing the fact that you do not need referrals inside of the network to see your specialists.
Okay. I thought maybe it had something to do with you could see more specialists outside the plan.
There are a few specialists with Aetna that you are able to see out of network. However, you absolutely want to confirm that before you go visit them, because in most cases, they are very specific circumstances. For example, if you are referred to a specialist that there are no other specialists in the Aetna network that can see you for whatever you've been referred for, that situation. Sometimes other situations might be like OBGYN also often fall into that out of network, but you just want to be careful because you don't want to end up with a full cost bill.
Okay, that's all. I was just curious about the Eliquis. Now you can only get the 30 days?
Sounds like you might only be able to get the 30 days if you are filling at retail. You may call and find out about the
mail order pharmacy may be able to get a 90-day supply, maybe.
Right, and CVS, which is the preferred provider for Aetna's policies, has both retail. Obviously, we know you can walk into a CVS, but they have mail order available as well. Every single prescription drug plan, if it's a Medicare Advantage plan or just a standalone prescription drug plan, will have both options available to you. In many cases, the 90-day supply are more readily available through mail order, but as of 2 years ago, most of the insurance companies have allowed for 90-day supply fills at the pharmacy. You just have to be careful that if you're on a more popular medication, like Eliquis happens to be a more popular medication, they might not have the 90 days available when you want to fill it. So sometimes there's just technical things behind the actual practice.
Very, very, very nice getting 2 phone calls right off the bat.
Lively Medicare conversation before we even had the opportunity to talk a little bit about Rita and Hubert, our Medicare topic for the day.
Absolutely.
Rita and Hubert have both been on an Anthem Plan F supplement for really the last 10 years, nearly 9 or 10 years or so, since 2016, 2015. They also have a standalone prescription drug plan. So as many people know, especially during open enrollment, you either take a Medicare Advantage plan that wraps those two things together, or you can take traditional Medicare with a supplement, and that covers the medical portion of your Medicare coverage. Then you need to add a prescription.
Got to have the prescription drug benefit.
Right, so that creates comprehensive benefits. You've got medical and prescription. You just had to piece it all together like a puzzle.
Exactly.
On your
That's how I like to explain it to people. It's, similar to what you had at work with Medicare Advantage, or we piece it together wholesale with a original Medicare supplement.
Perfect. And Rita and Hubert, when they first came in to see, it was actually me about 10 years ago. They were pretty adamant that they wanted this Plan F supplement and a prescription drug plan. So good news is we found them the lowest cost supplement available in Missouri, and Anthem also, even back then, offered silver sneakers as part of their supplemental benefit. So I always leaned towards them, good price, and you still get that free gym membership included. So why not add that in? Many of you have already heard, we've talked a few times about Mercy leaving the Anthem network. That is not applicable to the supplemental plans because they are not network-based.
And I know we've had a lot of concerns with our Medicare supplement enrollees about that issue, and they don't have to worry about it because one of the advantages of being in a supplement is you don't have to worry about those networks.
That's right. Whomever accepts Medicare will accept you, and that's generally the majority of physicians. So you don't have to worry about network negotiations like everyone on Medicare Advantage plans just has to keep their ear out about. So if you have an Anthem Medicare Advantage plan and you're using Mercy, you might want to give the individual who you worked with to purchase it a call, or you can always give us a call to make sure that you still have access to all of your physicians. So over the last several years, our main relationship with Rita and Hubert has been checking their prescription drug plan. Every year, just making sure they're in the right spot, continuing to alter it over time. But this year, they came in and said, we've been doing this prescription drug thing for the last 9 years. We keep hearing you talk about Medicare Advantage plans on the radio. A couple of our friends are telling us they're getting, their dental covered for them without any extra expense. They're getting not just gym memberships, but they've got extra money to spend at CVS and Walgreens. We don't have any of those things. Can we add them to our supplement, was their first question.
And unfortunately, the answer to that is no.
Unless we want to start paying for some things we can add.
We can add. We can't add it within the framework of a supplement. Now,
Perfect.
We can go out and get private dental insurance.
Right. We could pay more premium for dental. We could pay more premium for vision if you wanted.
Exactly. So, again, when we're piecing it together, if we're adding more pieces, we have to go out and get those pieces.
But even still, some of the extra benefits really aren't available elsewhere. For example, most dental plans do not cover dentures, so this would, and Medicare does assist in that. Or, you're not going to be able to find a hearing aid plan. You might be able to find hearing aid discounts, but Medicare Advantage plans do offer hearing aid benefits that you really can't purchase elsewhere.
And I don't know that any of the standalone vision plans are going to give you a generous $300 or $400 vision allowance.
That is a great point.
You may get an eye exam out of it, but I don't think that it's been a minute since I've looked at some of those plans, but
you make a really good point, and I learned this years ago because I always thought that, okay, this will be a great opportunity for us. People are retiring. If they want the supplement, well, they're going to want the whole package of benefits that they had with their former employer, dental, vision, and then obviously the medical component. But when we do the math on standalone vision coverage and individual dental might be a little bit different, but most people are used to paying really pennies on the dollar out of a monthly paycheck to have those group health insurance benefits, a couple bucks for vision, a couple bucks for dental, and they get some pretty significant benefits. When you transition to individual coverage, so when you're on Medicare and you're looking to add these ancillary benefits like vision and dental, it's more expensive on a premium basis because you don't have your employer helping subsidize it for you. But then secondly, the benefits generally are not as rich. So that means, just like you said, Rob, you prepay an eye exam if you were going to pay for a standalone vision benefit. And with dental, most of your dental benefits, if you're buying an individual dental plan, are capped at $2,000. Now, everyone might be thinking, I hear them keep saying about $2,000 is what they'll give you for dental on the Medicare Advantage plans. But the difference is you're not paying a premium with the Medicare Advantage plan. So you get actual $2,000. If you have a standalone dental plan, you're paying $30 a month and you have a maximum of $2,000. Well, $30 a month times 12 is your outlay already. So that's $360. So you're not really getting $2,000 of dental. You're really getting $1,640 worth of dental. Might not really be worth it.
Quite right. And when we talk about paying premium, with as far as Rita and Hubert go, I mean, together they were paying close to $7,500 annually for Plan F, which is a fair rate, to be fair. Rita's standalone prescription drug plan, that was an additional $37 a year with Humana, and Hubert was paying $91 a month for his PDP plan with AARP. So when you add all those costs up, you had $7,500 for the plan, and then you have another $1,500 for the prescription drug plans. We're over $9,000.
Right. That's over $750 a month in premium for both Rita and Hubert to be covered together. And like you said, it's $9,000 a year in premium.
And just let's scale that up over, they've been on the plan
10 years.
10 years. It didn't start out with $9,000, so it has gone up incrementally over the time, but that's still quite a bit of money over a 10-year period.
That's right. I mean, even if we said it was $9,000 a year for 10 years, that's $90,000.
Right, and even if it didn't start there, even if it started at, say, $7,000, it's still order of magnitude out of your pocket.
Absolutely. So when we were sitting down with Rita and Hubert this time around, they provided us not just with their prescriptions, because they said, we'd like to talk Medicare Advantage this time. So that requires, let's take a look at not only your prescriptions, but at your physicians as well. And what did you and Frank find?
Well, we found a couple of plans that Rita and Hubert really thought they'd like. For Hubert, we chose the Humana PPO with a max out-of-pocket of $3,700. And for Rita, she really was enamored with the Aetna SmartFit PPO with a max of $3,900 out-of-pocket. So let's stop right there.
Yep.
And let's just let's add those two numbers together. If it was the worst year of their life,
they both hit their max
out-of-pocket. That's a $7,600 price tag versus over $9,000 that they were saving. So even
that they were spending.
So even in a worst case scenario, they're still coming out almost $1,500 ahead.
So they have reached the point which many people on supplements reach the point. They are paying more in premium every year than they would even in maximum out of pocket in the worst case scenario. So with Medicare Advantage, we talk about this frequently. You only pay when you actually consume the services. So you could go several years getting nowhere near your maximum out of pocket. However, with the supplement, you are paying if you see the doctor one time or if you see them every single day. You have a fixed cost of that premium, especially with the Plan F supplement. So even if next year Rita and Hubert have a rough go, Rita hits her max of $3,900, he hits his maximum of $3,700. That total is $7,600.
Correct.
They're still going to save at least $1,400 in the year at minimum. But at maximum, they're going to be saving nearly $9,000. And that doesn't include the cost for co-pays for their prescriptions. We're strictly talking about premium expense. So the really cool news is that Rita and Hubert, over the course of the next year, are going to be able to not only maintain the physicians that they want to see, they're going to be able to fill their prescriptions, And we also are able to make sure that if you like a certain pharmacy, we're going to make sure that you have access to that pharmacy at a reasonable price. That might impact the plan that we help you elect. To, comfort on where you're picking up your prescriptions is important. Over the course of the next year, we're going to see how it goes, because they still have the opportunity, if they wanted to go back to their original supplement. They call that the free look, right?
Absolutely. Your first year on Medicare Advantage, at the end of that, you can decide whether, I tried Medicare Advantage and I'd like to go back to the supplement, or you can continue on with the Medicare Advantage. Now, that doesn't preclude you from going back at a later date, but to go back at that point, you would have to undergo some medical underwriting. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
The way isn't shut, but the door was closed just a little bit.
And this first year is going to give us the opportunity to see how much money they save. And when we look back over the course of the year and say, hey, let's see how much you've saved, if it's significant, that means that they're going to be able to take that money for subsequent years and put it towards other things.
Well, you know what? Rita and Hubert did. They really went all out, and they brought in, because Frank asked them, hey, do you guys have a rough idea of how many times you've seen the doctor this year? In the current year, so we can get a baseline of how you're using the supplement coverage that you have. And Rita said she saw her cardiologist once in the year. She goes to the chiropractor about 6 times a year, and she goes to the ophthalmologist once a year. So, she was spending about $270 on visits or she would have spent $270 on copays if she was under a Medicare Advantage plan. And Hubert would have spent, because he only goes to see the cardiologist twice a year, and he sees another specialist twice a year, $30 copays. He was only looking at about $300 for the year if he was on a Medicare Advantage plan. So, looking at her spending and his spending when applied to a Medicare Advantage plan, it isn't that they would save $7,600 or $1,500 rather. They would have saved almost $8,500 just being on Medicare Advantage, given their usage this year. Now, that obviously doesn't mean that going forward it'll be the same way, but if it was
it's a
similar,
decent indicator
right,
that
it's a baseline by which we can use to measure, how you're consuming your health care.
So that's almost $8,500 of savings in this year alone.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It really is. And that's just, again, still being able to get your drugs, still being able to have the current relationships that you have with your doctor. It's just, with supplements, you're kind of front-running those costs. And with Medicare Advantage, you're kind of playing the game. Well, I don't know that I'll hit my max out of pocket, but I want to keep these medical costs as low as humanly possible.
Dad, what could you buy me if you had an extra $8,500?
A crib.
A crib. Oh my God! I walked
beautiful.
Face first into that. Just face first into it. I thought I had you so good.
Well, I could add a stroller and other things to it, but
no, it's going to be the nicest crib on the planet.
Cased in gold.
Right. Exactly. $8,500 crib. What did you do with your Medicare savings? I bought a crib. Anyway, let's take it to a couple questions.
I put my money in the bank so I could buy the crib, right?
Nice.
And our first texter on Medicare writes, I hear on commercials for Aetna Medicare that there is a benefit of additional coverage for household expenses, food, utilities, etc. We have the Gold Advantage, and I'm not aware of that benefit on our policy.
So they do have some extra benefits available. My recommendation is you want to log on to the website. You want to create an online account, and they are going to not only will you have access to all of your current benefits, so you'll see how much you've spent this year on the medical, on your dental, on the prescription, but it's going to give you access to all of the extra benefits available to you. If you're on the Gold Advantage, you have the fitness benefit, you have the over-the-counter benefit. They do have some additional dollars available, not only for co-pays this year, $200 a quarter, but some extra benefits for things like household expenses, food, and utilities, so you want to check that out.
I believe there are some qualifiers, income levels,
and also you have to do certain things like have your annual checkup, certain number of steps, things like that.
But the texter reminds me, anyone that is on a Aetna Gold Advantage plan, you want to make sure you're going to suck out all those benefits while we're still in the calendar 2024 year. Specifically, I'm thinking about the fitness benefit. That's $1,200. If you have anything that any room left on that, that's certainly something to consider. And just keep in mind, as long as it's a qualified purchase, you can submit it after the new year, as long as you have a receipt reflecting that it was purchased within the calendar year of the policy.
Perfect. Excellent questions. We appreciate them all. Don't hesitate to keep them coming. We are going to take our first break of this hour. So like I said, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. We'll be here to answer them when we get back.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2 of the show. It's 10:35 here on the Big 550 KTRS. We're here to answer your calls and your questions. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Guys, I really thought that was a terrific discussion that you had previous about the savings that are available from a traditional Medicare supplement versus current Medicare Advantage plans. It's so important, especially if you've been involved in Medicare, you're a grown-up, as I like to say, because I am one, over time, to be able to go, okay, where is the math problem now? Because truly it's an algebra problem. And in this particular case that you said with the folks that we visited with, they've been in the plan for many years. They'd rode up the escalator in terms of cost increases. Their fixed costs were high, but their out-of-pocket costs of Medicare Advantage had gone down.
Also true.
And the rubber met the road, and it's called, hey, pay in advance, pay as you go. It's really up to you. So that was a very good discussion. I really did appreciate that. I'm sure our listeners did as well. And again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877, or the usually hot and heavy text line, 84126. And while we're waiting for your calls and texts for the balance of this hour, I did want to share with you a phone call that I received this week from a client. This is what I do. I talk to the clients when they call.
It's what you do.
This particular client of mine, his name's Tom. He's 70 years old. And he works at Costco, and he's not, I could have said, he works Sam's and he's a greeter, but he's not. He actually works there part-time, which I didn't know, which is interesting. And he called me and said, Jeff, I'm participated in their Roth 401k plan.
Very nice.
Very nice. And he said he moved aside about $3,200, and he was contacted by HR about getting his money out because he wasn't going to work there anymore. And we know if you have less than $5,000 in your 401k plan, they can
kick you out,
toss you. Exactly. So, really good question. Which was his concern was, as this is a Roth account, and he doesn't have a Roth currently, and it's less than 5 years old, will he have to pay income taxes on the interest earned if he withdraws money from that Roth? And are there any other penalties involved? You think that's kind of a no-brainer. But
Not a no-brainer.
But it really isn't. Because if he had an existing Roth with us, and it was over 5 years old, he could obviously move that money in, roll it over, as we like to say. That would be easy.
Right.
But what if he can't?
What do you mean, what if he can't?
Or what if he doesn't? Or what if he doesn't? Well, let's talk about his options.
He could request a direct distribution to him. The interest portion would be taxable as the Roth account is less than 5 years old.
Right, because his contributions were after tax, so he doesn't pay tax on those.
Right.
And he's over the age of 59, so there isn't any penalty, 10% penalty, right?
Right.
It's just the interest is taxable.
The second option would be he could request a direct transfer to a newly created Roth IRA. We could say if there was an existing Roth, that would be fine. We already know that Tom doesn't have a Roth. So we would need to create a Roth account for him, roll the funds into it. But
Right.
then he would have to wait 5 years.
Exactly. And what he could do is he could request a direct distribution to him and then redeposit within 60 days to his Roth IRA.
Okay, so the even more roundabout way. So you could either do a direct transfer in, you call the company directly and say, okay, I'd like to transfer my 401k into an IRA. I give the account number and the location. Or you could say, send me the check, and then you then send the check to your Roth.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, this is the paperwork option, okay, because he's creating paperwork for
this
himself.
This is the big-time paperwork option.
Both ways, as well as the IRS getting multiple reports about A, distribution, and then B, a contribution. So it's probably not the preferred way to do it. And bottom line is, if he has an existing Roth, he should transfer it in there and then make a distribution if he wanted the money. Or alternatively, if he didn't have a Roth, okay, do the distribution, pay taxes.
How long had he been working at Costco?
He's been working at Costco for actually 2 seasons.
That's too bad. Well, because I was thinking, just let it sit in the 401k, but he can't because it's less than the $5,000 cap.
Yeah.
Man, poor Tom.
Sounds like the direct transfer would be an option to at least cut down on some of that paperwork.
I think it would cut down on the paperwork, and then the other piece of it is if Tom wasn't in need of the money for the last 2 years, hopefully for the next 5, he can let it grow. One, it's going to be tax deferred and hopefully tax free if he is able to wait that full 5-year period, and then he'll have access to all that fund with no taxes.
Yes.
And we have a Medicare call on the line.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
For Paul.
Hi, Paul. Good morning.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just following up on what you said. I'd like to make sure that I use all of my fitness and possibly my copay card benefits before the end of this year. And I'm driving myself crazy on the Aetna website trying to get a list of what is actually allowed. You know, like I know fishing went away and shoes went away. So do they have a listing on their website to tell you what is allowed?
So unfortunately, on the Aetna website, they do not have a specific listing of the fitness equipment or things or services that they are 100% going to cover. It's a very generalized list. And if you would like, I have a flyer, and I don't know if it's the same exact one that's on the Aetna website, but you can send us an email, aaron@jblfinancial.com. I will send back to you all of the information that we currently have on it, and that way you also have my email that if you submit a claim and it's denied, we'd be more than happy to help try to have that corrected for you if it falls within the bounds. We've noticed even with my dad that sometimes it really depends on how you submit the claim versus what the claim is actually for. And since we have talked about this fitness benefit probably for very heavily for the entire year, we're going to help take responsibility to make sure that everybody gets to take advantage of it.
Right. And I would have to say that although their process is terrible and it's like they're trying to make sure that you give up, their appeal process is really good. And I just appealed my purchases, and they were all approved.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for calling, Paul. He makes an excellent point. The insurance company doesn't necessarily want to be separated from their money, but that's what our job is to do.
And there are some nuances with that fitness benefit, and as they've rolled it out and they've made some tweaks to it. I mean, for instance, won't pay for a bike repair, but will pay for a bike. You know, so it's this is like the first year they've really put some real meat on that fitness benefit. So, it's not unreasonable to think that as they go through it, and a lot of times these guidelines are coming down not from Aetna, but they're coming down from Medicare itself.
And as far as the processes go, I would say that Aetna specifically is working to improve their processes in the upcoming year. For example, moving the dental benefit from a reimbursement to a PPO-style plan will not take benefits from you. I think it'll make it easier for you, as opposed to having to pay out of your own pocket and wait to be reimbursed by the insurance company for your dental claims. Then this time you will just walk up to the desk at the dentist's office, show them your card, and whatever discount you're entitled to based on the plan and based on your service, they'll give you the discount at the desk so you don't have to pay everything out of your own pocket.
Good call. Good question. We do appreciate that.
Yes.
Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We got about 16 minutes left in the show. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Should we take our last break of the hour before we get into our last topic of the hour?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back for our last segment here of the show, 1046 on the Big 550. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the Heating It Up text line.
And we've got a rather long text from our text line, and our texter writes, my 30-year-old niece is developmentally disabled and is currently on Medicare, which Missouri switched her from to Medicaid. To my knowledge, she doesn't have any other insurance, including prescription coverage. She only is on one medication, which she pays for out of pocket. Do you know if she is required to have drug coverage under her Medicare coverage? Will she be penalized if she doesn't get drug coverage? If she has to get drug coverage, should she have to enroll now during open enrollment? If not, when would she enroll? It would be difficult financially for her to pay for drug coverage.
So, yes, it is a requirement to have prescription drug coverage when you are on Medicare. For many individuals who are dual eligible, meaning on Medicare and Medicaid at the same time, they do have access to prescription drug coverage already. Now would be the time to take a look at Medicare prescription drug coverage. There are plans that are zero premium if you are looking to add just prescription drug coverage. If she's looking to expand her coverage options, add some of the extra benefits that we've discussed, Medicare Advantage plans do incorporate prescription drug coverage into their plan design, so she would get not only extra benefits, but the required prescription drug coverage. Now would be the time to do that during open enrollment. If not, then there are penalties that can be assessed. However, in many cases for dual eligible individuals, low income individuals, those penalties are waived, but it is a good idea to incorporate prescription drug coverage into her plan, because in many cases we can find that at no extra cost to her, and it's going to provide her some extra coverage in the event that she's got a higher price prescription that could be significantly more expensive than what she's paying for out of pocket at this point.
Good question.
Excellent question. And that's really true of everyone on Medicare. That not about the waiving of the penalties, but that you do need to have prescription drug coverage, or you will be assessed a penalty when you want to enroll in it.
And it's a lifetime penalty.
It is a lifetime penalty. The penalty is a little bit complicated because it fluctuates from year to year, but it's 1% of the average premium of a mid-level prescription drug plan. So that's usually
on Mars.
On Mars. That's a great way to think of it. It's 1% per year for every year that 1% per month for every month that you should have been enrolled in the plan that you are not. That penalty resets every year, and it is lifetime.
Ouch.
Yes.
And our next texter writes, are smartwatches reimbursed under Aetna's fitness reimbursement program? Thank you. Absolutely.
Yes, they are. This one we know for a fact only because...
I've seen so many clients come in and they roll up their sleeve and they're like, check this out.
Aetna bought me this Apple Watch.
And it's this giant computer they have on their wrist. It gives them every single biometric readout you can think of, and plenty of ones you didn't even know existed. So
it's any fitness watch. So it does. I believe that the requirements is like it needs to be able to log steps or have other fitness metrics. So even what are they called? Pedometers when you're measuring steps. That'll work too if you want just something if you don't want the whole a trapping of an Apple Watch. you don't want to see your text on your wrist,
Oh, what a benefit where you could parlay that into a nice wearable technology.
Certainly.
Like that. It's awesome. And our next texter writes, does FDI insurance coverage protect my accounts if I were to work with you at JBL Financial?
So FDIC insurance pertains specifically to banks. We have SPIC insurance. Is that it? SPIC insurance is what is used for securities investments, security accounts, and those essentially do similar things. FDIC insurance protects you against theft and fraud. The securities version also does the same thing for you. They have different dollar amounts attributable to them, so you want to be sure that you're staying within those guidelines. None of those insurance protect you against market loss.
Right.
Like
this is
this
fraud.
Is theft and fraud. Exactly.
And that's because we use a custodian.
Exactly.
And the custodian carries that insurance, and I believe it's $3 million
per account.
Right.
Good
question.
Our next texter writes, how do your clients get distributions from their accounts when they decide to work with you? Excellent question.
Well, generally it starts out with a low-level hum. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, what happens is that what we do is we have electronic distribution available to them. We can distribute money directly to their banking accounts. They sign a form. Give us the routing number.
That's right. So you give us a copy of a check, and that way we're able to direct deposit either monthly or when you request it.
And some folks we do twice a month.
Some people we can match your distribution patterns from work. So when you were receiving a paycheck, if it was weekly, we can send it weekly. Working with our firm, there are no additional charges or fees to set up your distributions the way you'd like. So if you'd like charitable distributions to go to third parties, we can do that. If you'd like it to go to your bank, if you would like it to come weekly versus monthly, we can do all of those things. That's part of what we do during our coaching sessions, is to get in sync with how you are funding your life, not just the dollar amounts, but when those dollars are coming in, what you need.
You didn't like the hum part.
I didn't get that joke.
Divining it.
Oh, okay.
But
that wasn't the best one.
Exactly. I mean, and that's what the fun is designing the game plan for cash flow when they need it.
That's right.
Absolutely. And our next texter writes, love this. I've heard the TV say I should have 4 times my salary saved for retirement by age 50. Is this true? I just love I've heard the TV say.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice? More is always better, right?
Yeah, more is always better. Exactly. 4 times the amount.
4 times your salary by the time you're 50.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really use those type of metrics.
I think they're like scare tactics, because what if you only have 3? You feel like you're behind, and what if you only have 2?
I mean, if you have two gorgeous children at home, especially if they're girls, okay? Hello.
Oh, you're trying to say that we might have been expensive?
Well, of course. And I think I would, again, assuming that you're 10, 20, whatever years from retirement, just remember that Social Security plays a significant role in everybody's retirement. And if you look at like we would do in a coaching session, say, okay, let's take a look at how much we're actually spending every month, and no throw up, of course. But this is how much we're consuming. This is what our Social Security benefits would be. How much of a deficit is there? How much capital do we need?
And I think this could
later to develop that income source. And I think you would be surprised. What I really say is I look the other way, which is say, okay, during your childbearing as well as rearing years, if you're putting between 5 and 10% aside,
it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I mean, that would be a metric I would try to look at. As you're getting raises and bonuses, if you can continue to incrementally increase your savings, That's fabulous.
It's a little bit difficult when you are in your late 40s, early 50s to really look out into retirement aside from those basic tenets. Am I putting as much as I can between no less than 5 and 10% into my retirement accounts? Am I taking advantage of other opportunities, HSAs, life insurance, things that are building my portfolio over time? Because there are so many pulls on your income in that age range between 40 and 60, really. You're still most likely carrying a mortgage. If you've had children, that's right in the time frame. Most likely you're footing college expenses, or they're still in the house. So those expenses are going to change over time for you. So trying to fund to a lifestyle that luckily you won't have when you're retired, because you're not going to be supporting, most likely, hopefully, you won't be supporting children, or you won't be putting them through college in retirement. It's really going to change your numbers. But I think as a general tenet, we talk about looking at from a spending perspective versus your accumulation perspective, because the spending is going to lead to how much you need to accumulate.
Well, and what happens is, as you were pointing out, Aaron, once the darlings leave the nest, if you have them,
that's when your savings accelerates.
Exactly. And typically during your last 10 years prior to retirement is going to be your greatest level of acceleration. So do as much as you can prudently before then. And then when you get there and it's time to ramp up, you should be able to do that. But at the same time, take the time to do a coaching session with someone.
So
I'm doing this after, like I'm doing in about an hour. Do a projection. See where you're at. See how close you are to your target, and then you can make some decisions. Do I have to ramp up my savings? Do I have to reduce or get rid of, eliminate if we can, debt service?
Or do we have to have a different strategy for some of these things?
Absolutely, and that's really worse, because life changes, and so does your strategy.
And our last texter writes, what percentage of my retirement income should be guaranteed income, pensions, Social Security, income annuities, etc., versus drawing down assets from accounts that can fluctuate? Is there a certain formula you use to calculate this?
No.
4%.
Well, 4% is the prudent withdrawal rate from assets to create the income stream, but I think the question was
96%.
Everybody's a jokester.
Everybody's a jokester today. Certainly, if you were in a situation where your current income needs could be 100% covered by certain income flows, that is, those that you can depend on, then that's the gravy train. I mean, you're in heaven, because what happens is, the checks are going to continue. They're going to cover your spending. Life is good. Any excess assets there are basically just savings. It's growth. It's fun. Most folks aren't in that position. There's a certain portion of their assets that they will need to dedicate for milk money to create the income stream. And I would say that generally for the people that I've worked with over the last 20-plus years, 75 to 80%. If we can get 75%, 80% of that covered, they're feeling pretty good. They're not really too worried about the last 20%.
And we have one more text that came through, and our texter writes, when is the absolute latest I have to take an RMD for this year?
December 31st, and the absolute latest you have to listen to us is the next few minutes. So please tune in next week to our show, Straight Talk on Retirement, at 9 a.m., or give us a call if you'd like to come in and see us, 314-863-0008. See you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.